Hello and welcome to lesson number 8, where you'll learn about loops in JavaScript. Well, a loop is a piece of code that executes repeatedly either a set number of times or until a certain condition is met. And if you've worked with Sass and you've used the for, each, and while directives, then you already know what loops are all about. Now, when it comes to JavaScript, we have three main types of loops. We have the for, we have the do, while, and we have the while. So let's begin with the for loop. A for loop will repeat until a specified condition evaluates to false. And we go something like this. For, we open some parentheses, then we'll have an initial expression. Now, the initial expression can be or is mostly used to initialize a variable or a counter. So for example, I can say var x equals 1. And then I'm going to do a semicolon, and then follows the condition. Now, the condition is the thing that's going to be evaluated. And if that value of the condition is true, then the loop will execute, or the loop statement. If the value is false, then the loop terminates. So, for example, let's say x is going to be smaller than 10. And I'm going to do a semicolon again. And then third, we have the incremental expression. And this is usually used to increment the counter. So I can say, for example, x plus plus. And then we're going to open some curly braces, and we're going to have the main statement, or the block of code that's going to be executed. So let's say, for example, that I'm going to do a console log for x, and that's going to be printing 9 numbers in the console from 1 to 9. Now, if I say x smaller or equal than 10, it's going to print 10 of them, because the condition evaluates to true when we reach number 10. Now, if you're wondering, well, what can I use loops for? Well, you can use them for a bunch of different things. For example, we have that names array. What if we want to print all of the names in that array? Well, we can do something very simple. For example, for var x, or you can call it whatever you want, y equals 0. We're starting from 0 because an array's index is 0 based. So we're going to say y is smaller than names.length y plus plus. And then we simply do console log names of y. And that's going to print George, Margaret, and Sean. So what I did here, I started from 0. I'm going up until names.length, which in my case is 3. So we're going 0, 1, and 2. We're incrementing y as we go along, and we're outputting those names to the console. Next, let's move on to the do-while statement. And the do-while statement will repeat until a specific condition evaluates to false. And a do-while statement looks something like this. Do, and we'll have the statement here, while, and we'll type our condition. So for example, let's declare a variable here called x equals, well, let's actually delete the for. Yeah, we're going to do var x 0. So we're going to do console log names of x. We're going to do x plus plus, and we're going to do this while x is smaller than names.length. And this will print George, Margaret, and Sean. But let me show you another example. Let's say that we have a do while statement that looks something like this. Do console log x while x is higher than 0. And let's actually comment this bit and refresh. It prints 0. Now, why is this happening? Because x is 0, so this condition here is not met. Well, that's what do while does. The statement is executed at least once, regardless of how the condition is, or to what the condition is evaluated to. Now, on the flip side, we have the while statement, which is very similar to this, The only difference is the while statement will execute, or the while loop will execute the statement only if the condition is met. So, for example, we have while x higher than 0, we're gonna console log x. And if we're gonna comment this and refresh, we have nothing. That statement, console log x, has not been executed. But if we do while x is smaller than 5, and we do console log x++, we're gonna get this result. That's the difference between do while and while. Now, have you ever heard of mixins in CSS preprocessors? Well, if you have, then you should know that JavaScript and pretty much every programming language out there has something called functions. And functions are very interesting, very cool. You can do lots of things with them, and we'll learn about them in the next lesson.